Warming, nourishing, life-sustaining, reviving bowl of chicken soup. And today we're gonna make a Salsa Verde chicken tortilla soup that has crunchy, delicious baked tortilla strips with like a Salsa Verde that you put on top with this rich elixir of chicken broth underneath. Lots of shredded chicken, so it is still filling, but it's just the perfect cozy bowl to get you through, you know, the last couple months of winter. So as you maybe can hear, I am recovering from a bit of a cold, and this was exactly what I was craving, and I wasn't feeling well enough to make it until today. So today I am making this delicious soup, and I am gonna put a little heat in it because I find that that extra boost of spice and spiciness, you know, gets everything flowing, heats your body up, helps it get its mojo back. But my kids also love this soup, and when I make it for them, I just leave like the jalapenos and things out. So that's what you can do if you don't like a little bit of spice. But if you do, it's very nice. So let's make my Salsa Verde chicken tortilla soup. First things first, we're gonna clear all of our produce to the side because we're gonna break down a chicken. We're breaking the chicken down mainly so that I can brown off pieces that are small enough in my pan before I start the sort of process of building the soup. And what that browning experience does is give us even more developed roasted flavor. You could definitely roast the chicken first whole and then break it down and then do the soup thing or cook it whole in the soup. But this is going to speed the process along, and you get to manhandle a chicken. So, and don't be afraid, by the way, it's not going to go perfectly the first time. You're just going to keep working your way through it, and it doesn't really matter. You're just trying to break it off into more usable sizes. So the first thing I did was take off any little extra bit of skin. The next thing I'm going to do is remove the wishbone, which is here where the breast tissue connects. I'm just gonna make 2 little slits to help me pop it out. You can feel them right here, like 1 to 2, the little arch here. And I'm just gonna make 2 little slits to give me better access to the wishbone. And yes, that is the thing that you make a wish on. And if as you're pulling it out, it breaks, you can go ahead and make that wish all on your own. Oh, see, mine totally broke. That's okay. Pulling out this bone and pulling out the second half. And that's just gonna help us divide the breast evenly. And there we go. And just feel around if you left any little piece in there, which I did here. This is what I'm talking about. Not super critical that you do this all that precisely. It really is just a breakdown. And if I need to go back in with my knife, I can, just to pop that last little connective piece. So the next thing we're gonna do is get the legs off of this body. There is this connected skin here between the leg and the breast, and I kind of wanna leave that skin attached to the breast meat so that it will coat the breast meat. That's especially important if you were gonna roast these off to actually make it for dinner. Less important since they'll all be cooked together in the soup. But then working that skin along until I see the entire leg revealed, which I do here. Now, here we have our drumstick, here we have our leg. What we're gonna try to do is pop the leg joint so that it reveals the easiest place for us to cut around. That is the leg joint right there. That means it creates a nice little gap here between the body of the bird and the leg for us to cut through without having to cut through actual bone. And all I'm gonna do is work my knife around the leg and through that connective tissue, trying to preserve my oyster, which is this beautiful, extra succulent, delicious piece of chicken that you definitely want to hold on to. And you can see like literally the joint socket is right here, and I'm just cutting easily through. No sawing through bone, no nothing. Gorgeous, gorgeous leg of chicken. Guys, I'm showing you this process because I love to give you the confidence to know you could do this if you so choose. You could also definitely buy broken down chicken. There's no problem with that. You will not have access to the full carcass like we're asking for today, but you will still get a very delicious fortified chicken broth, and it will taste delicious. And sometimes you just don't have the wherewithal to go through all these steps for that, you know, little additional boost of flavor. And we are looking to preserve the skin for now because we do want that to lend as much delicious flavor as it can to our stock. Next thing we're gonna do is similarly just work to kind of, again, pop these wings out that we have here. And you should be able to feel where the bone connects here, which is Again, going to be the easiest place for us to cut through. Just sort of work your knife around until you find that lovely little connective juncture, and then you will never have to cut through bone. See, just pops right out of the socket, and then you just slice down through that little bit of connective meat here. Perfect wing. On this side, same thing. And again, this is honestly something that is very hard to learn by watching. You kind of just need to get in there, try it a couple times, and be unafraid. Last but not least will be to remove the breast. I am going to just cut off the backbone here. I'm just standing the carcass upright and then working through, severing out any of these pieces here. And these are very soft, sort of delicate bones, so they're much easier to cut through. Pull that away. But we are definitely not going to discard this piece. This is critical for that really fortified, delicious broth that we are going for. Extra nourishing, extra flavorful. Okay, so saving our backbone here. Now we are left with just chicken breast, flipping it over. I'm going to quickly cut through the sternum here. This is the only time when you are actually getting through bone. So be careful and use a firm grip and a firm knife just to break through that piece, and then it should all come together very nicely. Quick couple cuts, and you have a beautifully broken down chicken. 2 breasts, leg and drumsticks, wings. Let's brown. I have a heavy bottomed pan here. I'm using an enamel cast iron. I'm just gonna add a little bit of olive oil to the base of my pan, like a tablespoon or two, a genuine, not a Daphne tablespoon or two, a genuine tablespoon or two, because I am going to be searing skin side down. The chicken fat will render on its own, so you don't need to have too much fattiness going on at the base of this soup. I do want it to still feel very light and fresh, and just tons of flavor, not necessarily tons of additional fat. I'm going to get that going over a medium-high heat, and while the oil heats up, I'm going to quickly season our chicken liberally with kosher salt on all sides. I am going to work in batches depending on just how wide the surface area of your pan. You might not have to. Walking this over to my now hopefully sizzling hot oil. Let's start with the breast. So I'm going to go skin side down into the pot. Let's see. And I'll fit one of our wings, maybe 2 of our wings in here so that I can do thighs and backbone next. And we're not, it doesn't really matter that they're crowding a little bit in here. We're just looking to develop some nice color and start that roasting, flavor building experience. Let's roast some poblanos. Okay, so you have the option to be a little pyro and play with the flame over there if you'd like to do this on an open flame, or you can do it under the broiler. Doing it under the broiler is really nice, especially if you're planning to make a big bulk batch of this. You can kind of set it, and I was about to say forget it, but we all know what happens when I forget the broiler is going on. So don't forget it, but do set it. I've got 2 lovely poblano peppers here. They tend not to be too spicy. These are gonna go under the broiler, probably 8 minutes total. I'm just looking for nice charring on all sides. It's really gonna develop this great smoky, rich flavor. Get yourself a food processor if you can. It does definitely make moments like this easier. You'll use it for pie crust. You'll use it for marinades and pestos and all kinds of good things. Let's check on our chicken really quickly. If you don't have a food processor though, definitely still make this recipe. You just are gonna roughly chop the vegetables. It takes a tiny bit longer, but not much. Oh, the smell of golden brown roasting chicken with that rendering chicken fat, always glorious. Don't force it, guys. If you're in here fighting to release the chicken, it means it still needs a little more time to cook. So don't fight. No need. Getting myself a new cutting board. I've wiped down the counter and washed my hands. And let's get a new knife, shall we? Keeping an eye on my bird. I am not looking to cook this chicken fully. I am just trying to brown off the skin, render some of that fat out, and begin the cooking process that will continue as it boils and simmers with the broth. Our wings are done. Our backbone is gonna go in, tons of flavor. Do not skip if you went through the breakdown process. If you didn't go through the chicken breakdown process, go ahead and ask your butcher if they have any leftover chicken carcass. And they'll think you're super cool and very expert and that you must be a great cook to be asking for those pieces. And it will also help you develop great flavor. You know how I was reminded that the peppers were still charred? I can smell it in the air now. Come and see what we've got going on. Beautiful, rich char, obviously, on this top side. I'm gonna flip it and get the same on the underside. A couple more minutes under our broiler. And then we'll have smoky roasted poblano peppers. All right, pulling our legs and our backbone off, and then come and see what's left behind. All that yummy flavor and that little bit of additional fat. We're gonna use that to cook off our vegetables and give them tons of richness. See, they're puckering here on the surface. I wanna have a little bit more even char, and then they'll be ready to come out. One more minute. Okay, poblanos should be ready by now. Oh yes, lovely. What I'm going to do is grab them while they're still piping hot like so, and tuck them into a heat-safe bowl, and then wrap them and let the steam from the heat work to loosen that skin so I can easily peel it away and be left with only succulent, delicious, charred poblano flesh. Okay, just a quick little wrap to seal in that steam, and we can set that to the side and let it do its magic. Should only take a few minutes, but it also gives them time to cool so you can actually handle them. Vegetables. So this is gonna start to build the base of that delicious chicken broth, give it tons of flavor. I am gonna use a couple ribs of celery, maybe 3 ribs, like if those are quick rinse, a red onion, and you can use yellow onion, white onion, whatever. I find a red onion has slightly, almost like a punchier onion flavor, and also a bit of sweetness, which I do really like. It adds a little color too. This recipe, normally I use like 3 or 4 cloves of garlic just to give it a nice little heady taste of garlic going on. But if you are feeling like you want it to be extra restorative and extra medicinal in nature, go for more. Like you could literally use this entire head. And it would obviously be very garlicky, but garlic we know is so good for us and obviously has delicious flavor. So I'm gonna double the quantity of garlic. I'm gonna use maybe, let's say 6 to 8 medium-sized cloves. Perfect. Okay. You don't need to give these too much of a chop. They are going to go in the food processor, but I like to just give them a little roughen up, you know, just slam them to release the skins. Even there's just that light smashing, you probably don't need to chop them all that much more. These can go right into the base of our food processor. I just gave my celery a quick rinse just to get rid of any silt on there, and then all you want to do is trim off these sort of dead pieces at the end. And just give yourself nice pieces to be able to add to the base of your food processor, along with all those nice smashed cloves of garlic. I think I must have done 8 total, by the way, just in case you're keeping track. Grabbing a green bell pepper, which is my favorite. No need to chop these precisely. They are all going to get broken up. Just want to make it a little easier on the machine and give yourself some slightly smaller pieces like so into our food processor. And now let's grab this red onion and break that down quickly. Give it a quick little peel. Then a really rough chop, just like so, into the machine. And let's blitz these up together. Oh wait, I need the jalapeno to fit in there too. I'll give it a head start, then I'll get the jalapeno in there. If you find like you're getting a little stuck and the pieces at the bottom of the machine are getting too pulverized, we're not looking for a paste here. We're really kind of just looking for a rough chop, which is why you can definitely do this by hand if you don't have a food processor. Just give it a quick little stir, kind of try to push those larger pieces down. I will take advantage of that being open to put our jalapeno in. If you don't like heat so much, you can go ahead and pull out the ribs and seeds, which is really where most of the heat in the jalapeno hides out. I take a spoon and just kind of shave it right along, and out pops your seeds. I kind of like the heat, so I don't mind if a few are left behind. Add these in quickly wash your hands because you will touch the machine and then you will accidentally, unsuspectingly, in like 15 minutes, touch the machine again and not know why your eyes start burning the next time you touch them. The oils of the jalapeno are vicious and stay on that surface for so long. So, quick wash. You don't need to overstuff your machine quite the way that I did. You can work in more reasonable batches. Okay, lovely. So right about this point, I took it a little further than I usually do because I overstuffed this a little more than I usually do. When it is less full, you will be able to get those nice sort of like rough chop experience. Doesn't really matter. It's still going to be perfect in this soup. Getting my chicken fat and that little bit of olive oil back up and running. Veggie mix goes into our hot chicken and olive oil blend. Give that a quick stir. Oh my gosh, the smell that just erupted from this pan, you guys. Phenomenally delicious. Take a nice big pinch of salt. Remember, you did have salt on the chicken, which means that the fat is already pretty flavorful. The chicken is flavorful, so a little less than I would normally do, maybe a half a teaspoon here, just to make sure that those vegetables are getting their own flavor development and color. We want all members of the party contributing. I think we can peel the poblanos because those want to go in here as well. I'm just going to give those a really quick rough chop. The poblanos have had a second to cool off a little bit and steam in that heat so that the skins should just easily slip away from that delicious flesh underneath that is so smoky and charred. You can use a knife like I am here if it's still a little hot to handle, which this one is. You also, by the way, can leave the skin on. If you are a big fan of that like really deep smoky situation, it does add a little bit of that great charred color too. Peeling away these larger pieces of that external sort of burned skin. And then you can easily just sort of roughly chop the peppers. And I am leaving the seeds part of these because I took the seeds out of the jalapeno and I don't want there to be no heat whatsoever. Adding this delicious saucy mix right into the pot with my other veg, number 2. And I'll leave just a little bit of that extra smoky charred piece. If you want to open it up like so, that makes it really easy just to take any of those seeds away. There really weren't very many in here. Roll it up, give it a quick chop, and into the pot. I'm going to let this continue to cook just until it softens, maybe 2 to 3 more minutes. And then we'll add the chicken pieces back in and continue building this delicious soup. Okay, so the veg are lovely and softened. Back into the bath with all of your golden brown chicken pieces and any juices that have escaped as they've cooled. Sort of nuzzle those into that delicious brothy base. And then to start to add some of that extra brothiness, I am going to add a quart of chicken stock. Homemade is awesome. I was not feeling as ambitious today to do it. And this will drop the heat a little bit, but what I'm going to do is have it over high, bring it up to a boil, then drop this to a simmer and let it cook about 20 minutes just until that chicken is fully cooked. And you can let it continue to simmer longer and longer. You might want to add a little more chicken broth or a little more water. It will just continue to infuse this broth with so much flavor, get richer and richer. But 20 minutes is the minimum, just so you are fully cooked. Give this a quick stir so nothing is settled to the bottom. If you find that you want to add a little water at the start here, it will cook off and evaporate anyway, so don't worry about it. But I like to have everything almost submerged right at the outset. Give this a quick stir. While the broth is simmering away, let's go ahead and make some crispy tortilla strips because no chicken tortilla soup is complete without them. Today, I am going to use some chickpea flour tortillas to make these strips, but you can definitely use regular flour tortillas, whatever you have on hand. I'm also going to make extras because shockingly, these seem to go very fast. I like them thin, I like them crispy, and I am gonna bake them. Normally these are fried, which give you that wonderful crisp cascade over top of the soup. A really nice hit of texture, which is not usual for soups. I think part of the reason chicken tortilla soup is such a fan favorite is because you have this wonderful brothiness and then the chew from the chicken shredded into the broth and then the crispness of chips on top. Fabulous. Let me grab a knife. And then you just kind of want to give yourself nice thin strips. You can definitely fry these if that's more your speed. I'm going to spray them with a little olive oil and then bake them. They will still get really crispy and delectable. They're a little bit healthier and honestly, not as much to clean up, not as much oil splatter and all the rest. So just spread them out like so and give them a quick little spritz. Nice little toss. You just want them nice and evenly coated. I'm not worrying about keeping them independent or so. They will get nice and crispy on their own. I have my oven preheated to 400 degrees. The one thing I will say is you do want to roughly keep an even single layer because you do want these to crisp, not steam. At least give yourself little air pockets where everybody can breathe. Okay, these are going to roast away in a 400 degree oven. Those are gonna roast maybe like 15 minutes. I'll check in them at the 12 mark. I want them golden brown. They will continue to crisp as they cool. So don't feel like you need to take them all the way to deep dark golden brown. Let's check on our soup. Come on, it's bubbling, it's dancing. She's doing the cha-cha over here. Look at this. Look at this happy little party soup. I will say, in addition to being the soup that brings the texture, this is definitely the party soup. It's so flavorful. It's so rich and satisfying. The smell is so heavenly. Calling your people over for a get-together over chicken tortilla soup is definitely the move. Stirring this around, and I'm gonna drop this heat to that simmer and let it continue going another 20 minutes or so. Maybe I'll just half cover. The final step in this extravagantly layered, sumptuously delicious tortilla soup is the salsa verde, which is going to be a tomatillo-based salsa with a little garlic, a little white onion, a little jalapeno, nice bit of piquant sort of spiciness. You can leave the jalapeno out if you really just want acidity to layer into the soup and cut through some of the rich fattiness from the chicken. Grab yourself 5 or 6 tomatillos. These do look like green tomatoes. They are not, in fact, green tomatoes. Tomatillos are actually part of the gooseberry family. They're kind of fun to read about because people have like a lot to say about them. To me, they taste sort of like an apple meets a tomato. They do kind of taste like a green tomato. And if you can't find tomatillos, you can definitely use a green tomato. It will not be as authentic, but you will still get some of that like tart juiciness that you're looking for here. But the authentic move is to get the tomatillo. These are gonna go into the food. Oh, look inside. It looks like a gooseberry, a giant gooseberry. It tastes like a Granny Smith apple and a tomato had a baby and then had lime juiced all over. That's what it tastes like. Very tart and tangy and delightful. I've lost count of how many I've cut so far, but I think it was probably 5. Let's start with 5 and see how we're doing here. Especially because we now know that my food processor peats out at like the high mark here. I want half a white onion. I am a big fan of using a sweet onion. I like that little hint of sweetness coming through in this soup, but white onion is classic and delicious. Just giving myself roughly chopped pieces. I'm gonna add 2 cloves of garlic, just small ones. This is not a cooked sauce. I don't want big hunks of raw garlic coming through, just that nice little flavor hit. And then of course you need some fresh cilantro to really build up the sauce. I really love to include some of these tender stems. They add so much flavor. And just you can kind of leave the little woody pieces at the bottom off, but everything else, add it to the party. It brings tons of flavor. It boosts the detoxifying benefits of this soup. I love when flavor comes with function. That is the best. I'm gonna start with the juice of 1 lime. If you want it even more sour, go for 2. If your lime is particularly dry, go for 2. I'm using my little wiggle the fork trick to get us as much juice out of this citrus as possible. And by the way, this is a fabulous salsa for nachos, for tacos, for burritos. Once you make a salsa verde, you are gonna be like, for eggs. Oh, phenomenal for eggs. Phenomenal. Extravagant, exquisite, delightful. Let's blitz. And this one we are taking to liquid, so you don't need to worry about over mixing it. Perfect. Oh, look at this. I can't tell you about tomatillo coming through with that little bit of bite, that tanginess, freshness from cilantro, fresh liminess. Oh, No jalapeno. I was like, there's supposed to be something else in here. We forgot the jalapeno. A little heat in here is the one thing that I think I'm gonna want. Although, let me taste this soup and find out if the soup is too spicy, and then I might not want it. Oh, so rich. Nice little heat dancing around in my throat. Yep. Okay, I have a new plan. That's delightful. Let me give it a quick stir while I'm here. And the broth, come and see how like silky this broth is already getting from all those yummy chicken bits. That is what we are looking for. That is exactly the richness that is going to satisfy. And we continue to let that cook off. Because there is really nice heat happening already in my soup, I don't necessarily need jalapeno all through my salsa. I kind of want to be able to have people customize it and add it as they like, which means I'm going to give myself thin rings, which also make for a gorgeous garnish on this dish. Perfect. You know what is another nice thing? It's kind of lovely in the ring form, but you've seen that before. I kind of like to mince it and add just a little minced scoop into each bowl to be stirred through, which is lovely. Reserve those off to the side on your garnish plate, along with some thinly sliced radishes and some of that fresh cilantro that we have left for sure. And now we will check on our tortilla strips, pull the chicken off the bone, and dine. These have been in, I would say, 10 minutes. Very crunchy. Very delightful. I'm gonna give them 2 more minutes. They're chickpea flour, so they're not gonna brown quite the same way that a regular, flour tortilla would. Okay, so the strips are done toasting. They are lovely and tan. Love that little hit of gloss. Wait till you hear the crunch on these. Right when they come out of the oven is when I hit them with a little bit of salt. Not too much. There's plenty of salt in this recipe. These just need a little flavor to go with them. Now, this guy's kind of gnarly looking, so he will be my test. Did I say crunch? The final step is to thinly slice some washed radishes that I have here, just so we have that nice, cool little bit of crunch to top off our soup. Take your time, just thinly slicing through these lovely little globes. Let's get our chicken. You can leave this piece of the backbone in the broth as long as you'd like, just to continue to infuse that flavor. I am gonna pull out the pieces that have meat on them though, so that I can let them cool for a second and then take the meat off, shred it, and add it back to our broth. So I let the chicken cool just so I can actually handle it now. And it's still pretty hot, it didn't cool that long. I am gonna remove the chicken skin. You can leave it if you'd like. I just don't particularly love the texture of that in my soup. And then just literally use a fork to pull off that now fully cooked, delicious, juicy, and ultra flavorful chicken meat from the bones, leaving nothing behind, getting all that chicken goodness. And if you like it a little bit sort of larger pieces like so, you definitely leave those in. It shows that you cooked from the whole piece of chicken. It's very rustic and happy looking. I'm just going to continue working my way through all this meat, and then I will add it back in with the broth. Okay, let's just give the meat a little taste. So rich and flavorful. It soaks up all that flavor from the surrounding broth, stays super juicy. Oh, so good. If for some reason you were inclined not to add this chicken back to the soup, I don't know why, but if you were, would make a mean chicken salad. Brings tons of its own flavor. Okay, now the thigh meat obviously is going to be excellent, but let's just taste it to confirm. Confirmed. At the final moment, just before serving, take your backbone out of the stock. You really want to let it sit in there as long as possible to infuse as much flavor as you can. And then just use your fork to pull away any of that extra juicy, tender, delicious meat that is hiding out in these little pocketed areas. Okay. Oh, look at that extravaganza. I feel the healing. I feel it coming on. Okay, let's serve it up. I am a fan of a very hot soup, so I brought it back to a simmer before serving it into our individual bowls. A nice hearty scoop of all that chicken meat, plenty of that yummy charred poblano coming through. I'm glad we left a little of that char front and center because I do think it adds a lot. Now, for the garnish. Okay, so first things first, some whole milk yogurt. I have sheep's milk yogurt here. Any will do. Right in the center just to give it a little creamy lusciousness. A little scattering of our fresh radishes. A little mound of jalapeno, depending on how spicy you like it. Get yourself a spoonful of this salsa verde that we made with all those tomatillos and garlic. It's so nice to spoon and swirl around. A nice little haystack of, wow, we could really build these guys up, couldn't we? Well, how about we crumple them and just give them a little stacked layer here. And there, my friends, is your exquisite salsa verde chicken tortilla soup. So the first thing we do is we swirl this yogurt into the mix. And then those tortilla strips just sort of fall and start to soak up all the flavor. Oh my gosh. Oh, the acidity of that salsa verde starts to sweep through. That rich, so flavorful and brothy chicken base. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Let me try the chicken. Let me try a radish. What relief, what bliss, what joy. A crunchy tortilla topper. I am not even going to pull the punch. This is the most delicious salsa verde chicken tortilla soup you will ever eat. Don't even deny it. Make it now.